Hi lovely beings! We are here again in a video of the two of us. We're calling ourselves Forever Awesome on YouTube, and I'm Janneke Hellebrekers. I call myself on social media Miss Hellbreaker. I'm a yoga meditation teacher, healer, and I give courses, and I have a podcast, and I make these videos together with my partner.
Yep, and I call myself Hydro Hellbreaker, aka Eclectic Source, aka Together Forever Awesome.
Yay. And we're very happy to have found each other, and we're like in a conscious relationship, or what people also call divine union, or depending on, like, some people say are also resonating with twin flame or soulmate.
Soulmate, twin flame.
Yeah,
So many names they have for
yeah,
this.
so we'll just but at least we found each other, and we know this feels really good, and what we experience we want to share with other people, because a relationship is really beautiful, and it's really beautiful what you can do, that we can have this journey together, but it also, there are some bumps along the road, and that we also discovered already before, also previous relationships, that we want to share about, so it can make it easier for other people when some things come up. And especially with in relationship, like triggering comes up, like someone says something and you immediately like something like emotional reaction, but that can also happen in everyday life. It can happen that you get triggered, but in a relationship a lot of times we have like wounds that trigger each other, and then you trigger each other exactly in those wounds, and it is of course to be healed, but in the moment can be quite heavy to deal with.
Could be quite heavy. I want to mention something about triggering. What I've been learning is, during triggering, and I think this would benefit a lot of people, is so I was taught, and I was told, you even said this a couple of times, other people said it, some people, not to react once you're triggered. You really need to sink in with it and think about it and feel it out, and then after you have your thought process, you can give your reaction. Who knows what the reaction would be, but it's better to think about what you're feeling rather than feeling and reacting off of how you're feeling, because it can end up making the situation a lot worse than what it really is actually.
Yeah, because you can react, and then and it's better to even like really feel the emotions that you're feeling, and that it goes away, and then you can talk with each other about it. And also when you're in it, sometimes you can also snap yourself out of it. So, and then it's only one person triggered and the other person can hold space. There's different things happening. So, or you're both triggered and
you're both triggered. That can happen.
Yeah, you're both triggered, and then you can take a break and then come back when the emotion is away. Or like if one snaps out of it, or when one is triggered, then the other can hold space for the other one, just like whatever happened, like they can feel whatever needs to be felt. And it's always it can be anything, it can just be what you're saying, but sometimes what's the triggering, sometimes it doesn't even have to be like people have like a good intention and say something, and it can be taken the wrong out of context. So even though you hear something and you think they said this, but a lot of times when you after talk about it again, it can sometimes it can
be miscommunicated.
Yeah, it can be miscommunicated. So what someone else says, someone else hears something differently, and a lot of times it's the wounds from your youth, like from how your parents dealt with you, or your what they said.
So different forms of miscommunication.
Yeah.
Because we have one form between us is we use English differently. Like you use the words of English very direct, and we use it like more of like, we can use words in English, but we're not saying what we mean because we're using it differently. I don't know if I can explain this really, but I'm pretty sure some of you will get the idea.
Yeah, and we come from a different background. Like I have like the Dutch language, and
but Dutch language, and I have the American English, but then your English is not the same as our English.
It's English and English American through each other, And my English is quite good, but still we have miscommunications. And we also, even people when you have like the same language, then you still have miscommunications because you sometimes interpret things differently or you hear things differently because we all endure trauma in our lives. And
Oh,
when
so
we
trauma
grow up.
also, yeah.
Yeah.
So besides the language barrier just being that we speak different English, you also have different avenues of this traumatic miscommunication. I call it traumatic miscommunication.
Yeah, so we have like our body also a language, like perceives something as if it's the same as what your parents also said to you in the past, what you didn't like.
Trauma based.
Yeah, so especially when you are like very triggered and what comes out, it's a lot of times trauma that you didn't deal with before, because that's why it comes out so heavy. Like people are like, one person says something and it's suddenly like you're so angry. But when you are like triggered, everybody can react differently. So everybody has different defense mechanisms because like you get like, this is how you needed to defend yourself when you were young. So,
yeah, you might even attack the next person that you think is offending you as a defense mechanism. You don't know it's a defense mechanism. You're just like, it is, because you're just going against what they're saying. And you're defending yourself. Your ego's like, fighting them. And like she says, you have to come in like to realization that it's actual defense mechanism. And you need to work on that trauma and see what's going on with this. But sorry for interrupting you.
No, really, do, because it was beautiful what you said. So, and this is like everybody has their own defense mechanism. Some like freeze, flight, and fight. So some people go for the aggression, and some people like freeze up and they take themselves a bit away, and other people freeze, flight, and go away, like
Flight, yeah.
Totally go away. So
like they just totally just abandon, just leave real quick, just to get out of the current situation.
And it's really good to stay in contact, but the best is after you have like the emotion subsides, goes down. But it's also a really good way of like seeing what kind of emotions am I feeling. Like instead of saying like, hey, you made me feel like this. No, you have to like be responsible for your own emotion and seeing where it comes from and where you maybe, and seeing if this is emotion that you already have like for a long time it's building up, and or it's an emotion new in this moment, and you will feel it like lots of times when it's like overreaction, then a lot of times it's trauma from the past that you can like see from where does it come from, where did I felt this before, and what can I do with it.
Some people carry that over without even knowing it, and then they just display that for the next trigger. It just comes out because it's something never worked on. I've done it a few times. Maybe more than a few times.
And it's a really...
We all have.
Yeah, it's all good. Everybody is experiencing this. But just knowing and learning more about this and how to deal with it makes that you take responsibility for yourself instead of blaming the other person. Because I think a lot of times in relationships, people blame the other person and they don't see like, hey, this is also because of me as well. So we always have to, whatever is happening, we always have to see like the lessons within ourselves, like always take responsibility. Like it's not, a lot of times it's not only one person, it's both.
But it's also important for both parties, whatever you want to call it, to recognize, like sometimes you might not blame the other person. You might realize it's you, but you might realize it's you any other person. But you might admit it, but the other person might still think it's just you and not admit it. So now you're admitting it because you know where you made the mistake, but then you can't even get the other person to admit it. So that also causes an issue when it becomes like a one-way street of like, taking responsibility, blaming, fault, and all this other stuff. But as long as both people can come to an agreement and see where they made a mistake, and then you can see where you made a mistake at, I can see where I made a mistake at, and how we had this. And then you see the miscommunication as you're talking about it. And you can say, okay, I could have done this better, I could have said that, or I could have not reacted right away, I could have taken a few minutes off. So in that way, I like it when it's done that way, because that shows that you're doing work. That's the shadow work. That's putting ego behind you. You want to take more control of this logically, and it makes everything look so much more better in a relationship. It really does.
And it's also really good to talk about it. Like sometimes we have some things, and then the emotion goes away, and then we talk about it and we laugh about it. I'm glad that a lot of times we can laugh about it, because sometimes the emotion can rise suddenly out of the blue. Now, like a miscommunication of the energies, or like for some reason, like full moons and eclipses.
Yeah. Or just the moon cycle. And then when the female gets into their cycle because of the moon cycle. And it doesn't just affect them, it also affects us men as well. That's why, like, when they react, we react back without even, like, it's almost like we have the same thing going on. They have more physical things going on happening, whatever. But it's like that frequency when it hits, it's not just affecting them, it's affecting everything and everybody. But we like to say, oh, it's just the women and their cycle, but it's more than that. We're kind of on it too, you know what I mean? Because we're getting hit with that same frequency. No man wants to admit that out there, because they want to be all, you know, manly, whatever you want to call it. But you know, if you could just embrace what you're feeling, as far as like the energy's coming through and how, you know, it's getting you off, it's throwing you off a bit, and it's throwing her off a bit. You can also see that it's not that it's your fault. Maybe it's no one's fault. Maybe it's just how you guys handle these energies coming in. And it does pass. It will pass. But you have to admit fault. When something's coming in, it's not just on her. She can't just say it's on you. It's both of you together, and you're both being weakened by this frequency coming in that are hurting us, as far as the cycle goes. But everything else, like that you're talking about, with these triggers, is really interesting, because you really have to have people come together and really point out where they're making mistakes. And let me tell you, like, reason why you don't want to react, because you'll find it, like I said before, like when you think about it, you will find it so much better, but you'll find you feel so much better when you're just critically thinking about a situation rather than reacting. And you're learning more about yourself and more control. It's nice to have good control over yourself and your emotions. And once you master this, or nobody truly masters it, but once you get closer to it, not only does it raise your confidence, but it actually, I don't know, it makes you strong in so many ways. It just makes you so much of to me, I would say a greater version of yourself. But you can call it what you will. But I went off a bit.
It's all good. Yeah, you learn a lot about yourself, about your triggers, and where you still have to heal. But we're all healing, and we're all changing always, evolving and growing. So it will always come. And there's like, the more you're conscious of it, and the more you can make better choices, and understanding, mastering your own emotions and the things that you've been through, and like know thyself. It's really about that, and learning and growing. And yeah, it's really interesting journey. Like, but then you think like, and then something small happens, and we're like,
yeah. Sometimes you can't. Like recently, what happened? I'll explain this. Sometimes you can't catch your triggers because sometimes your emotion is just in front, and then you like might snap. But sometimes during like when I say stuff, and I'm getting triggered, I notice when I'm like not being nice because she triggered me, or I trigger her, or whatever. Or she's going through something and she's coming at me, so I don't respond. We're thinking right away, and I might get triggered. I might say something or snap. But then during that period of where I'm like, you know, I'm thinking, because I don't know if everybody has this, but there's an inner monologue. It's like I'm not just arguing with her or, you know, debating with her. There's another person in there I'm debating with, and it's like, I think it's more of my logical sense is trying to tell me, hey, you need to just speak this way, not because it doesn't make sense the way I'm doing it just off my emotion. And I'm having this conversation in my head, and it's pulling me back in line and getting me back in order. So as I'm being like, on the level of like aggression with verbally or whatever, because I snapped, it's actually pulled me back, and I'm like, I start thinking, I'm like, oh, I need to not be talking this way or behaving that way. And it really realigns yourself. So I don't know if you can call it inner monologue. I don't know if you can call it doing shadow work. I don't know if you want to call it not really mastering your emotion. It's kind of like you don't master anything, you kind of work on your triggers. I don't know if that's part of working on your triggers, and that's just how I feel, and that's how I describe it. But there's something that's talking to me, and it's as I'm doing it, and it's like watching myself, and I pull myself back together. I'm like, oh, I need to calm down. Maybe like, you know, change my tone a bit, and I change the tone, and then I bring myself back down, and I start like talking to you more logically, more nice, and saying, yeah, I know we did this, we went off on each other, but we need to really just like bring it together. And then we'll explain to each other like maybe a few moments later about, okay, what was it that caused it? You know what I mean? And what can we do better? And sometimes you want to work on it and do better, but sometimes you have those moments where it just comes out. So if it does come out, you just have to know how to reel it back in. A lot of times you could probably try to think about it so you don't go there. But once you get there and go there, you don't have to keep pushing forward, you know, with the aggression. You can just reel it back in. You have to have like you just really have to have that voice that talks to you, that pulls it. For me, that's what it is. And it's like, yo, you don't need to be speaking this way. You just need to like tone it down and bring it back, and you can speak about it in a gentler tone. And that's usually what happens. And then we get back to it, and then we do laugh about it.
Yeah, and then also
I didn't have that
there's
in
a
the past.
deeper understanding. Like if you say like, "Ah, if you say it like this, then I will get it," or maybe next time we can do it like this, or if like something that we do, if it's like that, then we can say like, how can we compromise, and then the same trigger doesn't have to happen again. So so it's also a very big learning situation where we can learn from each other, where we are like not open-minded, maybe also because of the things how we did it always, and that is also the breaking of generational curses or patterns, or that you like, or how you always have done it, or how you always reacted. Maybe you can react differently now, and that is also being conscious in the moment of your trigger.
That's a conscious relationship, because a lot of times what we're explaining now, in a 3D relationship that most people have, and you know you're not with the right person, you're just with them, or you know, you could tell when you're with the right person, and if you're not in that what they want to call 5D, if you're just in a 3D relationship, these triggers are normally like, it just takes a few of these before it ends a relationship. You know, you might go through like several, then you're done. You might go through a couple and you're done. That also tells you you're not with the right person, but also it's still good because you still have the learning experience to know. I don't know if it's practice. But
by being in several we both were in several relationships before, so we learned a lot from it, and see also patterns. Like I had like several times I was in a relationship and I was like, oh, it's almost like my parents, like arguing about little things. But I know, like, I see it sometimes also, and he even sees it, like, now you're a bit like your mom.
Or like your father. I see it sometimes. And I don't tell her when I notice, but I notice when I'm acting, I might have, like, behavior a bit like my father or my mom, or mostly like my dad. But she hasn't met my parents, so if I'm behaving a certain way, I'll think, oh, this is how my father was behaving. But I don't tell her that because she ain't met him, so I don't say nothing about that. But I see the difference between the 3D and then the so-called above 3D type of relationships is like, these triggers don't break you apart. You actually, like, they give you opportunity to work on yourself, and rather than just running and going to this one and going that one, or just being single or separating, whatever, you tend to work on it because this is something, you know, that you wanted. You have it because you made it to the relationship that you were looking for, so you make it work. So now you're actually going through this training of your triggers. You're going through all kinds of growth and expansion, and you're not just splitting up over something small. Well, I like powdered donuts, you like the jelly donuts. Just, you know, we're just talking. And then, so we break up over that or something stupid. You know what I mean? And I only buy the powdered ones, but you keep buying the jelly ones. I'm like, yo, this is ridiculous. We're done, you know?
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's
crazy. Like
right
a small thing can blow up.
Yeah,
and then you're like, while you're arguing, you're thinking by yourself.
And she doesn't like donuts.
Like, if you would say, like, we've split up by something very small, people would think, like, you're crazy. Like, no, the love is much bigger. Yes. So you always come back to love. Like, you come back to together, like, understanding, you talk about it. There's more depth, there's more understanding towards each other, about also how each other works. Because we all have like wounds.
I won't say funny. I'll just call it a higher level relationship. That's what it is. It's just a higher level. Really.
But we go out, we transcend the patterns or the roles, because you see, like, a lot of times, like, yeah, for me, it's like my parents have the same argument all the time, and they're like in a role, like almost
that's right.
Role.
Talking about patterns,
yeah, but going like you can change how you react. You can change, like you can, like, instead of automatically reacting in a certain way, you can be, if you're more aware in the moment, you can put yourself out of it, or react differently, or like make like count till 5 or 10 until you react, instead of like automatically react immediately. And that is how you break those habits.
Like me, you see me do it a couple times. You'll be right here, and I'll walk like maybe 15 to 20 feet away, especially if we're like shopping or at like a store or something, getting groceries. Like if I, you know, if something's going on, because I know when she gets in crowds, she gets very empathic. What you call it? Your energy. She absorbs the energy of so many people going on, and and it's hard to like communicate with her when she doesn't like. I don't think you like crowds. Well, it's just the energies of people. If they get into you, you react without knowing you're reacting, and then I feel it, and then I'm like, okay, now you're reacting, and then I'm like, oh, I can't take it. And I'll walk away for a moment, and then after like 2 minutes, I'll come back, you know. But like she says, you can count, you can walk away, you just need to take a quick break, and you really you need to think critically.
But you also need to know it from the other person, because if you're sitting there and suddenly you walked away, you're like, oh.
Well, I think that's also trauma based. That's also trauma based. You might experience people leaving you or something.
Yeah. So that's also my wound to get touched at that moment.
So if you're gonna walk away, like men, if you're men, just walk away. Like, because what I noticed with men and females is like when we get into a confrontation verbally or something happens that something gets our attention up. I think women, for what I experience, I'm not speaking about all of you out there, like to communicate right away. As for us men, we need to just walk away for a moment. We need a break. We just can't just be heated and just try to communicate. We actually got to get up. All right, we're gonna go walk over there, take a little break, maybe get a cup of water or something.
And that touches my abandonment
and
wound
then we
again.
come back, but then when you leave, now she has the abandonment wound coming up, and that's probably from some other trauma that's going on.
Yeah.
All women, all men, we all have different traumas, and we don't know what the traumas are until we do what we do to handle something we're dealing with, and then that may ignite another trauma, and then we gotta, I didn't know you had this. What's going on with that? Let's work on this. Let's talk about it. So you have an abandonment wound that we need to work on.
Yeah, and in the beginning of the relationship, there's also a lot of. We had also in the beginning quite some things coming up, like I thought you would do it like this, or like in the beginning I was afraid that something, if he was not there, something would happen or something if he was away. I now finally have it so good, and then maybe something happens, and
it's too good to be true type of deal.
Yeah.
I have that too, because like this is rare that like a higher level relationship comes together like this. This is very rare. I had to leave the United States all the way and go over to Portugal just to find this, like the way this is. This is awesome. You know what I mean?
Aww.
I really appreciate it, and there's nothing like it. There's nothing like it. Maybe some of y'all in the States or some of y'all in the UK, wherever you are, you might have to leave to find your ultimate partner. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Who knows where you find?
You find them somewhere.
I love seeing it. I love people. And you can also people can really feel it, that they want that longing, like they want to have not another person being with them and enjoying life with together, because it's really, really beautiful. And now more and more people are living alone and think like, at least I have my freedom, but there's also a longing to share your life, and when it's really beautiful, then it's like a bonus, it's an extra. Instead of that, it costs energy. It brings energy because you're someone that is supportive and is loving and that is kind, and it's
really rare.
Yeah,
but it's out there. You will find somebody for your level. Every level you're on, you might say, I don't like this person because they're treating me. Whatever level you are at, you're gonna attract that type of person. So remember, you can't really blame somebody else. I know I cut you off a little bit. I'm sorry.
It's all good. But that is something that we also do sometimes.
Yeah.
Because we are so enthusiastic that we sometimes cut each other off. But we know it. So that's also something that we want to change and want to be more.
It's a way of communication.
Yeah, conscious.
I want to be conscious of it, yeah, and give that space for you to put it out there.
And we know it's like a good intention just because you're so enthusiastic, and so that's why. But we catch each other, and that we also do that in the communication with other people. So what you learn in this relationship, you can bring that again further, and we really want to help people in it as well. So anybody's having some communications issues in their relationship, if you ever want to help in that, you can also reach out to us. And because a lot of times there's also everybody has different wounds, but also everybody has different perspectives of reality. And if one person says their story and one person says their story, a neutral person can see you're both true. You're both true because your perspective of reality is different. They come from a different background, different culture, different environment, and it can two totally different people can have totally different story. So a lot of times a
perspectives.
neutral person can say, like, I understand this perspective because of this and this, and I understand this perspective of this and this, so you can bring people a bit more together.
Yeah, like for instance, like you might see somebody like in a relationship, like if you're trying to help somebody or talk to somebody, we'll do the blame giving, and you'll see one of them blaming each other for what she's doing. She'll be blaming her for what he's doing. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like they'll be blaming each other for what the other one is doing. But you can look in there and you can see where they both have places where they can work on, you know, to bring that to the table to work for each other, to make it work better for each other. Like she's always blaming him, he's always blaming her. Once you learn to take responsibility and see your faults for what it is, things get so much more better. But then again, if you're in a toxic relationship, and I'm just gonna throw that in there, you're not willing to really work on these things. You're gonna play the blame game until that divide is there, and then you split the universe, pull you apart, and you'll go match up with somebody else that's on your frequency. And then that'll just keep happening until you elevate one day, and then you find that one that's on your same level, and you gravitate to this, and then you'll say, hey, it's the right one, and then you'll start like what we're talking about. Then you'll start working harder. You'll go through your triggers. You won't pull apart from these triggers, but you'll start working on them. And you know, this is gonna be your growth and expansion. This is when that's gonna start happening.
Yeah, and then you transcend all the patterns and all the things, but still sometimes things can come up, but it's not like it's just the other person, it's also you. And how can we work together? How can we make this even better? And then the relationship gets better and better.
You need to be the ultimate
better
team.
understanding.
You're gonna be the ultimate team. That's what you're supposed to be. That's what it is.
Yeah. So we're really like, we really want to help people and be there for people that need it. And hopefully this also gave you already some understanding of yourself and your own patterns, and also like in relationship, like in what way, like can you take more responsibility of like of your behavior, and how can you learn from it, and how can you change certain things, but above all, just be honest and be yourself. And also when it doesn't work out, just like talk about that, or if you have doubts, talk about it. If you're like, whatever is happening in the moment, like or what it does with you, like what someone is saying, like, or if you say it like this hurt me, like don't say anything, because a lot of people don't say anything, just they pull themselves further away, and that is also not nice for the other person. Or don't hold back. Like I had also a relationship that I didn't say anything, like or ask anything, and I thought they would know. Right?
You assume that they would know what you're thinking.
We make so much assumptions. Also, when someone says something and you think, oh, but they said because of this. No, that's like, don't make any assumptions and ask for it, so they can they can explain it better, and so you understand their intention. Because sometimes you can take it totally different what someone is saying, and then you don't understand why they say it in this way. So really, it's about communicating really openly, whatever is there, share it, and so you can just be yourself with someone, and that also doesn't cost you energy.
Communication is key. You must communicate. Get that throat chakra going. You really need to be able to speak. If you feel like you're in a relationship where you can't say anything because you're afraid to trigger somebody, it's not going to work. Vice versa. Like if you didn't speak, you feel like you couldn't speak because I might be triggered and you don't want to trigger me, then that's also not going to work because you're not able to speak. Communication is number one. You need to be able to communicate. You need to be able to communicate. You need to be able to talk. You need to be able to say what's on your mind at any given time, without any boundaries. You just really need to come out and say what you need to say.
Yeah, and what you said about the toxic relationships, like we have a lot of times we talk about like narcissists and empaths, but I also don't want to specify it's exactly like that. Everybody has tendencies, like narcissistic tendencies, empathic tendencies, and then that is also a pattern. And a lot of people first had to go through this to find themselves what is your truth, instead of losing your boundaries or doing like only focusing on the other, what they want, and like losing yourself.
Yeah, don't lose yourself, because then you're just like, that can go wrong in so many ways. Like I know some people say, oh, I love her so much more than myself. You listen. You have to listen. You have to come first. love yourself and come first. Because if you don't, you can't bring that to your other half. And you can bring that same amount of love that you love for yourself to your partner. And the stronger it gets with you, the stronger it gets with them. So you really just have to, like, you can serve, like, you know, I do a lot of work around here, you know, you just have to do it because you like to do it. You love to do it, like to do it. I do what I do. She's really appreciative of, you know, all the things I do. I really appreciate what she does because she does a lot of other things to help me. We work together. We're just an awesome team.
Yeah, I mean, that is unconditional love. Like, you do it not because you want to get something from it. You do it because you love the person and you want to give that. And that is so beautiful. If you're like two people that are like to give, then it's really beautiful.
It comes together beautifully. But like she says, don't just burn yourself out because you're serving somebody else. Because you think you should be serving. It's nothing to do with serving anybody else. It's like you're happy to do it, so you do things because you're happy to do them, not because, oh, I feel like I need to serve her because she's awesome. You know, you just really have to do. Like I said, you have to self-love. You have to love yourself. Self-love is number one, because if you don't have that, you don't have it for anybody else. You might think you do, and you might convince the next person that you think you do. You might convince your partner you think you do, but ultimately it might become disastrous. You know, so just keep yourself there, but self-love strong, and then that can then spill over once your cup is full onto your partner, and then they can enjoy that giant splash of love that you have inside of you, uniting you to like two halves of the universe, becoming a greater expansion in consciousness and all kinds of other great stuff. I can go on and on.
Yeah, and then you keep on growing and keep on evolving in love.
Evolving constantly.
That's so beautiful.
It's just like the universe does. It constantly expands and evolves. That's what you can do in a relationship. And pretty much what they call a dualistic nature of this realm. Dualistic, you have two becoming one. It's just to be uniting, to become one, and that's really what it is. And it's really just a higher level relationship. So that's how that works. Yes. There's no multiple. It's just you and your partner, and then you become that great one.
Yeah, and it's also so beautiful because you go deeper and deeper, and you learn also not about the other, but also a lot more about yourself because you're a reflection of each other, and it's really beautiful. So
nicely said.
Just keep growing and expanding in love.
Nicely said. Right.
And connection. So we want that for you as well. So thank you for listening to us, and hopefully you learned a lot from it.
We give thanks, everybody.
Yeah, lots and lots of love. Bye bye.
We'll see you next time.